So hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of several global gatherings to bring calm to COVID. So I am just so honored to be hosting these virtual gatherings with all of you. And what we've decided to do is to bring together some of the world's leading wisdom teachers. So today we have Marc Lesser and Gay and Katie Hendricks joining us. And our goal is to have some of these world's leading wisdom teachers share some strategies and tools to offer you all emotional and mental support during this time. Because this really is an unprecedented time when people can be really tempted to focus on the fear and anxiety. There we go. So this is a very unprecedented time, and we wanted to respond to the scale of this crisis by scaling our efforts and bringing together lots of different teachers with lots of different tools and strategies and approaches to share with all of you. So before I introduce Marc and kick things off, I just wanted to share our intentions for these gatherings. The first intention is to offer mental and emotional support during this time. The second one is to really amplify that support. So by bringing together a collective of different wisdom teachers and thought leaders, the goal is to really magnify the level of wisdom and love and compassion and grounding that we're able to make available to everyone. The third intention is to create a sense of community and connection. So I know a lot of people are feeling isolated, working from home in forms of quarantine or shelter in place. So we actually decided to structure this as a Zoom meeting rather than a webinar, which means you get to see everyone's faces. And I know that can be a little disorienting at first. You can play around with your toggles in the upper right corner to decide how you want the view to go, but it should be, you can choose speaker view and you can highlight different faces. Or I like the Brady Bunch option. If you choose the square with lots of little squares, you can kind of see lots of faces at once. Or you can choose speaker view. And Robin, if you could fix it to speaker view now, that would be great. So the third intention is to really create this sense of community and connection. And the fourth one is to give some structure and a sense of safety and grounding in a time that's feeling somewhat unstructured for a lot of people. And lastly, the fourth intention is just to be of service. So to offer the wisdom, the love, the teachings that might help you all and be of service to you. And then you can hopefully take that out to your community and to the people that you are in touch with and spread that even further. So without further ado, I would love to welcome and introduce Marc Lesser. And before I do, I want to give a shout out to Marnie Hines, who has been just instrumental in getting this off the ground. She's an incredible employee at Salesforce, and Salesforce has been promoting this event globally. So Marnie, I don't know if you want to say a quick hello and give any context to that.
I was going to say hello to everyone out there. I know that I've been hearing, whether it's through colleagues or others that I work with, the challenges of working from home, given the current environment that we're in. So appreciate you taking the time for yourself to join us today and get some of the benefits of learning how to, live and work in this time right now. So thank you for everyone that's joining.
Yay, thank you, Marnie. And so now I want to pass it off to Marc Lesser and give you all a little bit of background on who he is and why we invited him to join us here today. And please also avail yourself of the chat box. So you'll notice that you can type a chat into the chat box and say welcome, and would love for you all to just share a couple words on how you're feeling or what you're hoping to get out of this time here today. And then I will be reading those out to Marc as he moves forward with his teaching. So please introduce yourself, share how you're feeling or what you're hoping to get out of today in the chat. Okay, so Marc, a little background on Marc. He is a speaker, an entrepreneur, an executive coach, and he's an author who's written several books. He was actually helped develop the world-renowned Search Inside Yourself program with Google, which is a mindfulness-based emotional intelligence training that brings mindfulness programs to companies around the world. And his books include 7 Practices of a Mindful Leader, Lessons from Google, and a Zen Monastery Kitchen, which is such a great title, Marc. He also was founded was the CEO of 3 companies and has an MBA from NYU in his And in his business and coaching career, he was a resident also at the San Francisco Zen Center and for 10 years, and then director of Zen Mountain Center, the first Zen monastery in the Western world. So the reason I was so excited to invite Marc to join us is he has this beautiful blend of wisdom and meditation, Zen tradition, and then corporate knowledge as a CEO founder with an MBA. So he bridges those two worlds so beautifully. So without further ado, Marc, welcome, and I will pass it on to you.
Thanks, Vanessa, and thanks, Marnie. It's funny listening to you talk about my background. You know, people in the Zen community think that I'm a business guy, and people in the business world often think that I'm a Zen person. And actually, you know, I wrote a book. My first book was called ZBA, Zen of Business Administration, and the first chapter is says that we're all Zen students and we're all business people. There's no avoiding either. We're all Zen students in that we are all born and we all live our challenging, wonderful, joyful lives, and we all will die. So we're all Zen students, and we're all business people in that there's no avoiding our everyday lives and work and paying the bills and washing the dishes. And so, and a lot of what, especially these days, I'm actually I was in residence up until a couple of days ago at the Zen Center, leading a Zen and work intensive, which is still going on, but now from our various homes. I actually wanted to start with a couple of my favorite quotes, and then I want to get us to sit together for a few minutes, and then I'll get us in small groups to talk to each other a bit. But you know, I started a company about 30 years ago called Brush Dance, a greeting card and calendar company. So I therefore consider myself a professional quote collector. And one of my favorite quotes is by the Wendell Berry, who's a 5th generation Kentucky farmer, who said, "Be joyful, though you've considered all the facts. Be joyful, though you've considered all the facts." And I think this is a great time to really lean into looking at all of the facts, including our feelings and fears and hopes and dreams, all of the facts of our lives, and as well as what's happening, and to be super curious as to what's happening, and to feel our fear and to feel our despair sometimes and hopelessness. And at the same time, how can we find our own sense of joy to be here, to be alive, to be with each other, and that it's actually possible to feel both, at the same time. And the other quote is a piece of a poem by Tony Hoagland, in which he says, "Do you remember that time and light are kinds of love? Do you remember that time and light are kinds of love? And love is as practical as a safe spare tire or a coffee grinder." So this sense that everything, when we really open our hearts and minds and drop the expectations and fears and doubts, what's there at the bottom is this sense of great love and heartfeltness. So let's sit together for just a few minutes. So just making the transition to what it's like to stop, what it's like to bring your attention, if you can, to whatever's happening right now with your body. Maybe noticing, making conscious choices, if you haven't already, how you're placing your body on your chair, or if you're sitting on a cushion. Choosing how to place your feet, how to place your hands. Relaxing the shoulders. I just so appreciate this simple, profound practice of stopping, noticing, and not trying to change anything, but bringing a sense of awareness to whatever's happening with your body, with your thoughts. Noticing that breathing is happening. Again, not trying to change anything, just bringing awareness. I invite you to bring awareness to your breath. Again, just noticing that breathing is happening, and so simple, and at the same time, this breath is actually new, will never happen again, has never happened before. This moment. So both holding it lightly, and at the same time letting it sink in that we are here, noticing what it's like to be here, to be alive right now. We'll see if it's possible to let go of anything extra, anything not needed. Try on feeling what it's like to be free and awake and alive right now. I think this is the practice of stepping into our own humanness, whatever you might be feeling or thinking. It's a big, wide tent. Dogen, who was the founder of Zen in Japan 700 years ago, was asked, what is practice? And he said, nothing is hidden. Nothing in the world, nothing in the universe is hidden. So just allowing your mind and heart and body to be open, unhidden from yourself, unhidden from others. And let's just sit quietly together for a minute. And bringing our attention to being back here with each other. Thank you. So I think I want to go right into getting everyone into pairs. And here's what I want to suggest that we do. So in a minute, we'll miraculously pair up everyone, I think. And what I want to suggest is that we do this practice that I think of as mindful listening and mindful speaking. So each person will have, let's do 2.5 minutes for each person to speak. So one person will speak and the other person will just listen without interrupting, without asking questions, just completely giving your attention to the speaker, practicing listening. And the other person will speak for 2.5 minutes, and then there'll be another 2.5 minutes for you to talk with each other about your experience and how it went. So the suggested topic for the speaker, a couple of possible topics. One is, how was the meditation? How was it for you? That's one possible question. Another is, what's in your heart right now? And a third possible question is anything you want to talk about, because I suspect never again will you have these 2.5 minutes to talk to this person. And so this is a great gift, and there may be something on your mind that you'd really like to share with this other person. If there's nothing that you have to say, or you run out of something to say in your 2.5 minutes, it's fine just to sit there quietly. There's no pressure to speak. So each person will have 2.5 minutes. There'll be another 2.5 minutes, and then we'll come back and there'll be a few minutes for people to share what happened or ask questions, or we can do whatever people want to do. Vanessa, are you going to get people into groups?
So just so we're clear, 7.5 minutes total.
Exactly.
All right, I will be putting people into breakout rooms right in 1 second now. Also, for everyone who's here, maybe would some of you like to share what's in your heart right now?
Or whatever, anything you would like to say or ask or mention.
I found the few minutes of meditation quite relaxing. At the end, I was feeling even a bit like, I wouldn't say sleepy, but very relaxed. And that was really good. So yeah, it's not always the case. So that was nice.
Thanks, Eileen.
I'll share. I feel like I've been able to maintain pretty positive, but yesterday something just reached a tipping point for me. There were a few conversations I had with folks, and suddenly I just feel very connected to an incredibly anxious and fearful energy. So I'm really glad to be here today to try to get out of that place and back someplace that's more centered and loving, because I'm just feeling really out of sorts right now.
Thanks for sharing that.
Jessica, something about yesterday, there was a kind of a pivot point for me as well. And I'm also struggling with judgment, which I'm not happy about, but I'm just witnessing that.
Thanks.
I'd like to say something related to what Jessica was saying, which is I'm seeing the tale of two worlds right now, where there is that anxious energy, and I'm also seeing the beauty of humanity. So many people are getting more connected because of the disconnection and going through the adversity. There's this real human element that seems to be coming out, and it's just been heartwarming in so many ways.
Thanks, Aaron. And it's funny, I'm actually in some way finding it in a strange way easier to connect with people now. So I'm starting to make online dinner dates and online teas with people that are always way too busy to ever have dinner with me or meet me for tea, or I'm way too busy. And just the not being in my car and and letting go of my travel schedule has been an incredible blessing in a way. Not to minimize the pain and suffering, but just to note that there's that, but there's something about, our own, how can we find joy and calm and appreciation without suppressing our anxiety or fears or doubts, and it's interesting. I think there's some value to compartmentalizing at times, and there's some value to just completely opening up and letting all of what we're feeling in, and being able to recognize. Sometimes it's okay to fall apart. I've noticed I was falling apart during. It's funny, as I was listening a couple of days ago to Mayor London Breed talk about these new this new social, isolating, and it just hit me. It suddenly became real in a different way, and I just felt myself these fear but not just strong feelings of like, how can we meet this situation? How can we meet ourselves? How can we be of service? How can we really show up? And sometimes falling apart, sometimes completely reaching out and helping others. Vicki.
Yeah, I really wanted to ask you about this because, I know that, you're home with 1 million people, but the social distancing, I think, is going to be as big of a health hazard for us as the virus itself, given that we're, mammals, and mammals thrive on touch and actual contact, not virtual contact. So, it's important, in my life to actually be able to be face to face with someone at a close distance, to be able to mirror breathing and, see and feel the nuances in human life. And I really miss it and find that it's harder to soothe myself. Like talking to myself is great. I have almost 50 years of meditation experience, and that's great. That's fine. I can feel all the interconnections in body and mind, and that's fine. But, sometimes I just miss my people.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, you were actually making me think of my, I've become friends with Jarvis Masters, who is been on death row in San Quentin. And he was actually in kind of solitary confinement for years. And again, this is nowhere near like that. But there is some question of what can we learn and grow even from from the feelings of aloneness and separateness, to really lean in and find our. I think so often we can, as you say, we need those connections, but they can also be, I think, there's a way they can distract us, I think, from what's most intimate in our own hearts and mind. I think this is a time to really, really sink in, and know that this hopefully will support our ability to connect with others in a really deep and profound way. So we can use this maybe as, it's a little bit like monastic time, which you know very well, Ms. Austin.
I think it's the opportunity to reinvent ourselves and to think about what is really important, what we want to do differently from now. At least this is how I feel.
I did not too long ago, a one-day retreat that I led for a group of Google engineers, in which we spent the day just sitting in silence, and they were all really blown away by how deep they went and how good it felt actually to just spend that time sitting. and they, at the end of the day, they asked, do we need to go to the monastery to get this experience? And I said, you can, but I suggest making some monastery in your own home, just some space where you can sit, even if it's for a few minutes each morning, where you can just have that place where you can find that space where nothing is hidden, where you can completely open to whatever's happening, and you're completely allowing your feelings, embracing your feelings and your breath and mind, and also then with each exhale, kind of just letting it all go, having the courage to let it go and see what happens. And Vanessa, I want to be respectful of the time here.
You're okay going a few minutes over if that works for your schedule, but we can also wrap this up if you need to. I think you had something.
I'm good. I'm good to go.
Great. Excellent. Well, I know a lot of people were saying that they were sad because they were in a breakout room by themselves, or they didn't get that opportunity to share. And some people said, can we go back in the breakout rooms? I'm hesitant to do that unless, we could do bigger groups in the breakout rooms to make sure no one's alone. But also I think this sharing is bringing a nice level of intimacy to the conversation here. So
sure.
If you want to do that for a few more minutes, that's good too.
Yeah. Anyhow, if your breakout room didn't quite manifest, apologies. It was, we tried. But anything anyone wants to bring up now?
Hey Mark, this is Puneet. Hi, I hope everyone's good. So yeah, so my biggest concern, is I personally feel, I feel it hard to digest, that even being so economically well off and being able to do everything in such a technological world, we are still not able to it's hard to digest the fact that there is someone above us and we cannot do anything about it. And apart from staying at homes, isolating each other. But it's really hard to digest that we are still not able to come up with anything other than staying at home. It's really hard to digest for me, and it's a bit scary as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to digest. It's and at the same time, I think it makes sense, right? That I think we all get it on a cognitive level that let's not infect each other and avoid overwhelming hospitals and treatments, and that this seems to be what works, and it's hard to digest, it's hard to understand, and none of us knows how this will play out, and it's interesting. I think this, as I said, this Wendell Berry quote, right? Be joyful though you've considered all the facts, and this sense of sometimes falling apart and sometimes just feeling your own ground and calm and equanimity right in the midst of not knowing. There's this expression, my good friend Norman Fisher gave a talk last night at the Zen Center, which probably will be available pretty soon on the Zen Center website, in which he spoke about a kind of a Zen expression that says, not knowing is most intimate. Not knowing is most intimate. That, of course, we want to know, right? We want to know, but to find, and in truth, we don't even before all this, the truth was we never know. We just really don't know, and we don't have control over our own thoughts. We don't have control over our own bodies. And I also think of another line of poetry from this is from yeah. Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? It's a William Stafford poem. Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? Someone else was going to say something.
Yeah, Mark, this is Suzanne. So I'm so grateful that we've got technology such as this, that we can come together and celebrate each other and have these conversations. I'm also really grateful, though, for all the technology that we've got. I live in California. People that I love live in New York. They are older. They cannot get out, cannot take care of themselves. And this has just put me on notice to be more present for them through phone calls daily. Also, technology, God blesses one and all. I did grocery shopping for them and it arrived on their doorstep. And so able to take care of people far and wide. The random acts of kindness that I'm seeing every place I go is humbling. And so this moment in time is our time in this moment to be the best we can possibly be and create this space and make it what it needs to be, even in spite of our fact that we cannot be together. We don't have to be apart.
Yes, thank you. No, it's yeah, it's pretty amazing. I went to the grocery store yesterday, and the level of care and connection was at a very, very heightened level. And it's funny that with the social distancing, people were much more aware of each other in a kind and connected way, even with the distance. It's kind of strange paradox.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Jennifer, and I was going to share something that along those same lines that I've noticed. I believe, or at least for me, I feel like the virus has created a spotlight on different extremes. And so it's made us sort of look at some things differently. And I keep seeing that there are different spectrums, which is showing different extremes on. And I was thinking, especially during some of the meditation that you did, that and it was, you were talking about transparency, that it's good to let ourselves be open to the extremes, whether it's the extreme feelings, the extreme observations. So one example I've noticed is that all of a sudden with this virus, the world seems incredibly small because we're all going through this together. But on the other extreme, distances seem farther. So we now have, just even with another person, we're farther apart, but even going across the country seems farther. So holding those two extremes is we don't necessarily think of it that way. And if you let those extremes be and accept those extremes, you might notice some different feelings that you've had inside that maybe haven't come forward. And another one was just this virus brings, another example is that the virus brings forward this notion of loss, all these things we've had to let go of that we can't do anymore, that we're stopping. But on the other hand, it also really brings forward this notice of the moment and today, because every morning you wake up and there's more news, which isn't necessarily good. So it's really highlighting both. And it just feels, sometimes it feels like you're on a seesaw, but I was thinking, especially from your meditation, like that's okay. Maybe let them both be.
Yeah, no, thank you. There's the definition of the word paradox is something that seems impossible, but may in fact be true. And I think everything is like that when we pay attention, right? That we're constantly losing, we're losing things, we're going to lose things, right? We know we're going to lose everything. And then here we are breathing in, and the whole world, is right there. I took a photograph of the sunset or the sunrise this morning. It was just extraordinary sunrise, this incredible gift and incredible possibility.
Mark, I want to say something. This is Leslie. I also want to, I guess, highlight the fact that like now we're forced to be more present. Like we're locked. I'm in New York, so we're, you know, we have to be home most of the time. And, you know, I have already like started that practice on my own, but I know many of the people around me have not. So they're going to have to be uncomfortable being alone. And I think that that brings a different level of awareness. And I think it just, like, I think there's just like a mind shift that's going to happen after this in general, you know, being more mindful of waste, being more mindful of the food that we consume, being more mindful of what we put in our bodies. We're already talking about like, how can I increase my immune system and things like that, you know? So I think that there's like a new level of like consciousness that's coming out of this illness, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. I saw some maps that were published about the amount of carbon going into the air, and from outer space, you can see that suddenly there's tremendous less pollution, particularly in places like China and Italy and Spain and now the United States. So, but I again, not to minimize the suffering, but there is a different kind of, I think, awareness of our relationship with each other and with the planet that's emerging, potentially emerging here. I wanted to just, you know, one of the things that I mentioned earlier that I've been leading this practice period at the Zen Center this month about Zen and work. And there's these three practices. It's interesting, people think that that mindfulness, integrating mindfulness with our work and lives is something new, but there's a teaching from 700 years ago in which Dogen suggests that we bring three minds to our work, and I would say not only to our work, but the idea of bringing these three minds to all parts of our lives, whatever we're doing. And these three minds that he suggests are joyful mind, grandmother mind, right, the mind of unconditional love, and great mind or big mind or wise mind, right? However you define, maybe I think of wise mind as being the mind that cuts through the delusion of separateness, right? To see that we are so intimately connected to each other and with nature that, right? So this is one way to look at wise mind. So joyful mind, grandmother mind. I love, it's amazing that this Zen guy from the 13th century was teaching grandmother mind. And these originally were practices for the head cook in the monastery kitchen, suggesting that this is how the head cook bring, and in some way, I think we're now all head cooks in our lives, right? We're cooking our lives, whether we know it or not. And so I want to suggest be the head cook and bring these three minds. Just something about the idea that you can consciously bring these minds, these practices into your life, into how you are showing up. I think there's something profound about even that idea of practice, that practice and practicing with these minds, and that we have many, many minds.
Beautiful.
Claudia, and I wanted to first and foremost say thank you, and thank you, Vanessa, for putting this together, bringing us all together on the topic.
Claudia, it's kind of hard to hear you. Can you somehow change your...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not really. The first word you say is always better, and then it kind of peters out again.
Okay, how about this?
Much better.
Thank you. I think my question was around a couple of things that you said this last piece, Mark, but also.
Oh, there's a bad echo.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Claudia. I'm not sure why.
All right.
You could
Thank
maybe
you.
put it in chat window.
Yeah, maybe type it in the chat, Claudia. All right, if someone else, we're going to wrap up Mark in just a couple minutes, but if someone else wants to ask him a question, you can unmute and share, or you can type it in the chat as well.
Hey, this
Anyone
is
else?
Jackie. Hi.
Hi, Jackie.
Hey, I struggle a little bit with, I tend to, bit of an empath, so I can feel, you know, the collective stress and sadness, and I wondered if you have any tips on how to kind of balance that, connecting outwards and feeling those connections with people without becoming overwhelmed with other people's energy and sadness, and that's going to get worse in the next few weeks, so any advice would be welcome.
I think it's okay to feel sad and to get, again, to, you know, to not suppressing feelings is generally not a good idea. So to allow whatever those feelings are, to allow them, and at the same time to see about experimenting with these three minds that this Zen teacher Dogen suggests, again, without pushing away. And even I think that there's something about feeling our, I think grief is an amazing feeling. Like, it's why are we enabled to feel such grief, and then how noticing how that grief can transform into great sense of wholeness and joy and appreciation without forcing it or trying to do anything, but just feeling the sadness, feeling the grief, feeling the feelings, and not pushing them away, and seeing what happens. And sometimes it helps to find someone to talk to, right? That you don't have to do it alone, even in this time, to find someone who can listen to your feelings of grief and sadness can really help, and to be able to connect at those levels, I think is a great gift.
Thanks.
I'm just feeling your precious heart, Jackie, and I appreciate you sharing with all of us. I feel so much love for you, and I appreciate your vulnerability, and I can just see the sadness on your face, and I feel a real tenderness towards you as I witness that. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you.
And Jackie, thank you for inviting us into your kitchen. It's just fantastic.
My house is destroyed. We got bed bugs at the same time as the virus. My house is like upside down.
I mean, we've never met before, and here I am right in your kitchen. It's just fantastic. I'd like, maybe we can have some tea sometime.
Oh, that sounds lovely. And oh, she's got it right there. I want to read Claudia's question. She said, sorry about the echo. I was asking for guidance on how not to panic and stay grounded when that is one's tendency. Marc mentioned we will all die, we will lose all, and how do we avoid the dread of that thought? Dun, dun, dun.
I was going to tell the story of when my mother was here dying on my living room couch many years ago, and I made her a milkshake, or a fruit shake, that I knew was one of her favorite things in the world, was these fruit milkshakes, and I handed it to her, and my mother looks at me and says, what are you doing? I'm trying to die, and you're making me milkshakes. And I looked at her, and without even thinking, I said, Mom, I'm fine with you dying. I just want you to die healthy. And so there's something about You know, we are here, we are alive, and appreciating that, you know, life is, you know, whether you think life is short or life is long, to appreciate today, appreciate right now. How can we find our confidence and groundedness and fall apart and cry and grieve and this is our path. I think this is our path, is to be confident enough that we can fall apart, and to fall apart enough that we can find our own sense of groundedness and confidence.
Can I tag on one remark? My name is Heather. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Just to, I think it was Karen who was talking about feeling empathetic and very heavily sad about others. And something that I'm trying to kind of help me, I guess, along with is realizing that at some point, I think I will be able, I hope I am able, to really think more about those others who are struggling more than me and how I can help. And also remembering that I'm not there yet, and that I need to get myself grounded first for myself and my own family and get my kids in a rhythm. And like, I'm not there yet, but there is hope that this will, I mean, not so much hope, but this will probably go on for longer than we want. And I think there will be time, once we're all in rhythms, to really think more about others and maybe act and do more.
Heather, it sounds like your kids are already thinking that there is someone who is thinking about them. And there is something, I think there's also something about reaching out and helping others that is incredibly healing to ourselves. You know, I think it was no accident, right, when the Dalai Lama said, right, if you want to help others, practice compassion, right? And that if you want to help yourself, practice compassion. And I don't think he was kidding around. I think that there was something about, you know, benefiting, going back and forth, taking care of ourselves. Of course, we have to take care of ourselves, but a great way sometimes to take care of ourselves is to reach out and see how can we benefit others? Who can we help, even if it's small gestures?
Hello.
Agreed.
This is Alejandra. Can you hear me?
Yes, Alejandra.
How are you? I was thinking, we have been quarantined here in Mexico City, each in their own decision. And I have a 25-year-old who, by the way, Vanessa, enjoys very much your daily meditations. But we had previously not seen much of each other because we all worked out of the house. Right now that we are working from home, we see very much of each other. So it's becoming sometimes overwhelming in very few days. So I was thinking, what would you recommend such that with different ages that are all gathered at home, and that we are just starting this quarantine period, what would you recommend that we do so that we could continue being together without quarreling, fighting, and I don't know, feeling overwhelmed being together?
Yeah, well, I'm also recently, before this happened, my daughter and her husband and her 9-month-old baby and her 2 dogs moved in with us.
Uh-huh.
And I have to say, I you know, there's been challenges, but I love living in community. And there's something about being able to express what you need, you know, being able to be real about how to work together in smaller spaces,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but also to find time to play and sing and dance. I was, just to, again, and feel out, let yourself feel this is a time, I think, to feel your own intuition about what's needed. Maybe sometimes you need to go by yourself and read a poem or just rest. And sometimes, to bring people together and listen to music or read stories but to be as creative and conscious about how can we support each other? What works best now?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy. Thanks for coming in from Mexico.
Yes, thank you.
All right, maybe one final question or comment from one other person, and then we'll wrap up with Marc and let him go. Or you can stay on, Marc, if you want to stay here. I'll be teaching next, and then Gay and Katie Hendricks will be joining us. But is there one other person who'd like to share something or have a question for Marc?
Hi, it's Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Thank you all for organizing and hosting this Zoom call and meditation and discussion group. Just a comment regarding the last question. I have heard that setting a schedule for the family and people, living together in a smaller, close quarters, and for the majority of the day, trying different scheduling, so that everyone has like the play time, the work / distance learning time, and breaking it up and enjoying family meals together. And then, having an independent time. So it's a suggestion that people have tried that have worked to create some sort of order balance that might work for, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of the last question, but the person who asked the question.
Alejandra.
Yeah, so that may work for her. I don't know if she wants to try that. That's all.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes, thanks, Laura. Yes, I think schedule and make sure that everyone washes their own dishes. Those are the two most important things.
Yes, I know those healthy, loving boundaries of like, now I'm with my mom right now, and I started to get angry with her last night, and I said, I'm going to go take some quiet time. I need to go upstairs. And then the other time I said, I need to go for a run. So yeah, I really agree with what Marc said about the self-care.
So Vanessa, I'd like to just end with a quote.
Please do. And also I know you're leading some sits, maybe through the Zen Center or otherwise. So if you have other resources to make available for people, we can share that in the emails. But if there's anything you want to mention now as well, please feel free.
Yeah, I just, I do a weekly writing, a weekly blog post on, it's marclesser.net, MARCLESSER. I sent out a piece this morning about finding, and a meditation also that I sent out about finding ground in the midst of groundlessness. And the San Francisco Zen Center, sfzc.org, is doing these morning online meditations, and I'll be doing a talk there online Saturday morning. And next Wednesday, you can check out the Zen Center schedule.
Excellent. I just put a link to your latest book as well. So people, if you look at the chat, there's a link to Marc's book.
Yeah. So to end my time here, one of my favorite quotes is by the poet David Whyte. And I've heard him talk about this particular quote where he's writing a poem, and he says, he writes down the line, "You must learn one thing. You must learn one thing." And then there's this, he stops and he's wondering what will come next. What is this one thing that you must learn? And he writes, "The world was made to be free in." The world was made to be free in. Thank you all. It's and Vanessa and Marnie, thank you again for this invitation and for organizing this big heartfelt thanks. And to everyone, thank you for your attention and heartfelt Many heartfelt thanks. Take care of your place.
Love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marc. It's been a joy to have you be part of this and have your wisdom and teachings and the poetry and the stories that you shared are really it feels like a balm on my soul. So thank you for that. And I know that I'm not alone in feeling that way.